All right,
Super
get ready
fun
for a great
episode.
episode.
Yeah, it's coming at you. We're going to talk about the importance of the LeBron Ken doll.
Yes, and different ways that Shopify can share employee opportunities.
And we're also going to talk about the stat that 19% of people identify as upper income, are upper income, but only 2% identify as such, and like why that's actually important and how not every brand needs to be racing to the bottom of the barrel.
Right. And Heineken's latest stunt that 100% here for, the flipper, and dating run clubs.
Ooh, and coffee shop dating too. So much to talk
So
about.
much.
Oh,
All
and
right.
exomes. Yeah, let's get into it.
Salmon skin, I'm here for it. Enjoy.
Hey everyone, it's Chris.
And Kirsten.
Welcome to Good Thinking Weekly, the podcast where we discuss the best of the best in brands, marketing, and culture.
Thousands of people, top execs from the likes of Complex, Klaviyo, Walmart, Wall Street Journal, and LVMH tune in every single week.
We run a creative consultancy in GoodCo, so we know what it takes to build a good brand.
Subscribe on YouTube, your favorite podcast app, and Good Thinking on Substack for more.
All right, let's dive in.
We're back.
Birds chirping. This podcast coming to you with a side of sound bath from Mexico.
Indeed. Iwataneo, beautiful place. Highly recommend it. Good surf spot.
All right. It's fun to be back in the regular podcast seat, get back to the groove.
Yeah, episode 63. I love that you were really excited to write about it. And I also love, I think there's magic, as there always is, but maybe a little bit of extra magic. And here comes a tractor. A little bit of extra magic in the headlines, which to me just goes when you're out and have perspective and you come back into the office, there's always a better version.
Yeah. Yeah. I was super happy to be back writing. It felt like I had missed it, but yeah. It'll be fun. One more letter before a spring break pause. So, let's enjoy it while it lasts.
All of the pauses. All right. Well, let's get into it.
Let's
do it. We are episode 63. Oh, all right. We're going to get right into it. A lot to dig into and really fun. So I want to talk about culture as we do and every bracket. I thought this was fascinating and would love to dig into it a bit more because I think other people will also find it fascinating.
Yeah. So I mean, so what you're talking about is something that it wasn't necessarily something timely that I've been thinking about, but something that I've been thinking about in general to everything that's going on, right? So it wasn't one thing that popped up for me that I'm I have to write about this. But I think this is something in general that brands, for me, it's something that I've been thinking a lot about the last week. Obviously, this is coming from a place of I'm sitting in this comfortable house and da-da-da-da-da. So it's, there's a fair amount of recognition, but I think of privilege. But one of the things that I really think brands don't understand is that everything is relative, right? So pricing, to get into this whole tariff thing, everybody is going towards the bottom, right? I see all these brands, I won't name the big brands, but think big department store that you can drive up into in your car and that, there may be a specific color involved in that brand. And they are moving in a direction where all of these brands are sort of oh, we got to make cheaper goods. We've got to make cheaper goods. We've got to make something that costs $2 or something that was $4, got to make it cost $2 because nobody wants to spend money anymore. And that's true. that is true that people are doing that. But what's also true is that this upper end of the bracket is looking at their 401ks, their things, they're going on, and they're oh, well, actually, maybe, I might like some value in some areas of my life, right? And they are going to places like Uniqlo, like Zara. And what Zara and Uniqlo have done is they're not trying to chase the bottom. They're actually trying to chase up, raise the value, raise the quality of their goods to make it so that when you buy these affordable goods, they're not cheap, but they're affordable, they feel really great. And you feel like you're getting a lot of value out of them. And so this group of people who could previously afford a $100 t-shirt, and probably still can afford a $100 t-shirt, but maybe don't want to spend $100 on a t-shirt, are coming down and saying, hey, that Uniqlo shirt, that really well-designed one, the fit on it's perfect, the shoulder is great, everything about Zara's jackets are working right now, like all of those things, right? Like the quality of the fabric at Zara is improving, and they're
Sure.
capturing a group of people that are coming down versus going all the way to the bottom. And I think that every brand needs to be looking at sort of like, where do you really want to sit in this spectrum? Because there's a whole staircase of people that are coming down, and you don't need to go to the bottom step. You can be in the middle step, or you could be towards the top of the step. And value is just completely relative. And that's all I have to say.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's well said. But to give the audience a little bit. So the what you wrote and the stat is that 19% of US households are upper income, but only 2% identify that way. And I think that's so fascinating and is like, yes, that makes total sense. And I think that really hits. And I think it's really interesting. Like, I definitely have a bunch of clothes from Uniqlo and Zara, and see, for me, I shop up and down. And I think that's a huge change specifically from a fashion perspective, but also from a retail perspective, of brands starting to think that way versus like, okay, I have this and then I'm going to do my diffusion line or this. Being able to think about it in kind of the different ways you outlined, I think is a significant shift.
Yeah, I will also say, and I didn't include this stat because, I think there's a lot going on in the letter, but like there's also a similar stat to say that while there may be a lower income bracket, they also don't identify as lower income, right? They identify as middle income. And so one of the things about that is that no one wants to feel like they're getting bad quality things for a cheap price. Like, no one feels good about that. So I think one of the things that I'm really sort of emphasizing is that, like, if you are going down, like, you need to make sure that your quality and your value that you're adding isn't getting lost in that process, because I think a lot of brands are doing that right now. They're cutting corners to like make everything cheap, but it's like, if the dress falls apart or like the design isn't good, like that's not value to me.
Right. And I think looking at both the Uniqlo and the Zara playbook, and I think Zara's been hitting it more recently. But we've talked about for a while kind of Zara's marketing and how they've been using super high-end photographers and models and things like that. Always talk about its product and brand. And I think they really started with their brand kind of elevating and doing those parts and pieces. And now I think we're really seeing it with the product. So it's really matching up and they're killing it.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on to food and beverage. Again, such a good headline. Encounters Brewing. So, I mean, obviously, need to dig into this more.
Puns were hitting for you.
Yeah, I mean, yes, your puns normally do. But the dating app, First Round on Me, launched a cafe to host events.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. Like some people, the dating app First Rounds on Me, which is basically the whole concept is like, you just meet for a coffee, right? Like it's supposed to be a dating app that is very pro just meeting up and doing it versus like a lot of like chitty chatty, like back and forth, like,
Makes sense.
Pictures you don't need or one, or sometimes you do one, but like, anyway, no judgment.
That's totally different.
And they started this coffee shop. And so it's sort of like the idea is like you could go and hang out there. It's like going to a bar and knowing that you might want to meet up with people, but like there's like this general intent, right? And like, that's no kind of different to me than speed dating. And it's certainly no different than what's going on with the running clubs where people are going there and they're trying to date. I actually think this is better, right? Because you don't want to like go to a run club and you're there to run and someone's there to hook up. Like that vibe is like someone needs to do something where it's more intentional. Like they should maybe also have a run club going out at this coffee shop. But yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think that, the industry in like IRL, like, dating is blowing up. Like there's a bunch, around like skiing, and there's a bunch around, like hiking and activities. And I just think that it's really interesting that people are obviously realizing, and I think this is, a thing as old as time, but they know that you're going to have a more genuine interaction, and that's what people are looking for. So it's interesting to see this kind of growing, I would say. Totally. What do you think about it?
And I think it makes a lot of sense. Like,
we're not really in the dating market anymore. So.
I know, now I'm off. But I've been, I guess I haven't actually been to, but I know Phil did an event in New York that my friend went to. And I think, and we talk a lot about the breakfast club that I do, and just in general, it makes so much sense. People want this. Like, how do you meet in a way that is a more kind of casual and, you can talk to a couple people kind of a thing. And I think the run club analogy definitely hits for me. And I think run clubs have the opportunity to do this. Like, people want in-person events, dating is happening and maybe even stronger than ever. And it's like figuring out all of these parts and pieces and places for people to interact in real world settings, I think is just getting stronger and stronger.
Yeah. Well, I think dating is, I think dating is not necessarily going strength to strength with a group of people, and it is with another group of people. Like I would say, like the older group of people, there's more older people in the dating market than ever before, and there's a bunch of younger people who are just like, I'm out, and there needs to
Yes.
be something for everybody.
Right. True. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just really, really smart of what they're doing. Just the coffee thing. Like, there's so many things about it, and it's bite sized. You can meet with a bunch of different people, kind of all of the things that make a lot of sense. And I do think it's something we're just going to see growing. And I think every brand, dating or not, has the opportunity to look at, okay, what is the the IRL version of my brand, and what does that look like?
Definitely. I also think as AI grows, like that'll go more strength to strength, like for sure. Now that there's AIs training you on how to, sext with people, like that's not going to go so well anymore. So like it's you're going
Totally.
to need you're going to need a way to cut through that mess. So you're going to go and try and meet them in real life. At least the AI who doesn't know what it's doing is going to not show up.
Yeah, that can get dangerous. All right, moving on to drugs and booze. We got to talk about the flipper.
Yes. So the flipper is Heineken's, like one of Heineken's latest in a series of campaigns, right? That I've shared over the course of maybe the last year or even maybe longer, of things that they're doing kind of around disconnection, which, again, ties very much to this dating club sort of thing, like about how maybe people really want the ability to disconnect. And I think they do. So this concept is that when the AI can recognize when you're having a good time. I don't know if that's from like, chitty chatty,
Yeah, what is that
or
from?
like, what is that from? So we won't even like get into that. But you're having a good time, and then it flips your phone over so that the phone is like facing down on the table. So there's like this little arm on the back, if you haven't seen this thing, and it like does like, it's like I don't know, like a taekwondo move where it like flips the phone over, and then like the phone is facing down so that you don't see the screen anymore. I mean, quite honestly, like I think that there's probably more basic ways that they could have done this that are potentially more effective and less virally, like have an area on all these different tables that's like the phone area where you like flip it over, and like maybe it can like not have water on it, which is always the thing that drives me crazy about putting my phone down on tables, is like you put it down and then suddenly you're like, oh wait, my phone is entirely soaked in water. So yeah, I think that they're very much trying to go for this more like virally, like I would say liquid death vibe with all of these campaigns. Like they had the dumb phone where you could only get like certain kinds of texts, and like, they've done lots of different things around this idea of like, try to get off your phone and spend time with people that you like, not on your phone. And I think that message is right. I think like there are probably, I would love to see the expansion of this into like more real life things. Like if they could really do this in a way that felt like it was like you were really enabling this, I think that would be cool.
Yeah. I think that's the move. I think that's 100% the move. Like, I think it's a yes and for me. Like, yes, be viral so that we're talking about it and things like this, but also like carry the experience all the way through so that you're doing all the things that you mentioned and more. And I love the idea of a brand like this, of really going and like really trying to kind of give an opinion with regards to society and say like, let's get off of our phones more and connect more. Like, I love that, and I'm here for that, and I think they did it in a fun way that we're obviously talking about, but I think carrying it through from a brand would be amazing.
Yeah, like I would love to see them be at, I don't know, the Olympics, or I don't know, the World Cup that's coming to the US, or any of these things, and really like be that brand. Like they could create places where it's like, hey, like we're not all on our phones. Like every event that I go to now, like I was at Salon at the Design Week, and everyone's just standing
Mm-hmm.
there like this, like filming shit. Like it was just very, like I was like, oh, like we can't. We're only here to take a photo of things, you know. Like it would be great if they had like an area of the stadium or something where it's like, hey, you want to be here to watch sports and like actually watch it versus like be there to watch it with your phone while you're watching it, like to take the perfect moment of the, you know, the
Yeah.
ski jump or whatever. I think there's just cool ways that they could expand this that would make it feel genuine versus like these like viral
A
stunty
stunt.
moments.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It reminds me of the Quiet Room that Selfridges did several years ago. That was just anti-brand everything and just meant to kind of be a moment away from all that, which, you know, I think was both viral and also meaningful atmosphere that they created. Okay, moving on, the opposite of what we're of the Quiet Room, alphas, etc. The rise of the ruckus. I know we went back and forth a little bit on LinkedIn with this. My 13-year-old son, I haven't. They've been with their dad, so I don't know what the anticipation of this movie is. But give us the backstory.
Yeah, so Minecraft, I mean, the short story is Minecraft came out with the movie, and obviously alphas, older alphas, to be clear, are very excited about it. And there's a lot of like inside jokes that go along with Minecraft, like sayings and things that if you play in this world, you'd know. And if you're a parent, then you're absolutely clueless to these things. And if you're not a parent, then you're even more clueless to these things. And you know, the kids are throwing popcorn, and but like this movie is like a sensation, right? Like it's doing so well. And like, you know, like, so the naive version of me that like wants to not care about, you know, trashing a movie theater, which is probably the more genuine version of me, like is like, yes, like these kids should have fun, like they're in real life, like you're always constantly telling them to like get off and like do things, and and now they're showing up in real life, and sure, they're watching a screen, but like it's a social experience, and they're having fun, and they're engaged, and they're excited. And now you're like, oh, like at the beginning, now there's like a warning that's like, don't forget to respect the movie theaters, like, you know, don't throw popcorn. And it's like, I don't know, like I think that the movie theaters should come out and be like, you know what, like we're going to create a day where we just do back to back to back. The movie theater gets trash, we're going to bring in an extra cleaning crew, like, you know, you guys have fun, and like bring in a different generation of people who basically couldn't care less about the movies. And I just don't think, I think every generation feels this way. Like it's like even the Rocky Horror Picture Show that I was saying it was like, and that the article says it was like people used to be like, oh my God, like those people, they're cannibals, you know, like they're terrible people. And like now, like it's like that's such a fun, like, you know, it almost feels quaint, that experience, you know.
Right.
So yeah, I think my view on it is like I wish that there were places that were like embracing of this alpha generation without being like, like the alphas, they're out of control.
Right. Right. Which I do think is every generation, but I think the connection to Rocky Horror is a really good one because that was a movement, not just like, you know, something that people were watching. Like that was really a movement, which I think to be a part of that from a cultural standpoint, it's amazing. I totally agree with you on the alpha spaces as like, you know, they need a place to go. We had places, and whether or not we were embraced, not totally sure. But I think even more so, you know, this is an opportunity. Like this is where like, okay, kids going to movie theaters is declining, kind of all of these woe is me like parts and pieces. This is an opportunity, like we talked about last week, as far as standing in line. It's an opportunity for theaters to come in and go, okay, this is happening. We can either embrace this and figure out a way to really make it work and maybe have everybody come to our particular theater, looking at you, AMC, and any of the others, to really create that versus to say like, oh, okay, no, we don't want this to happen. Stay out of our store, Sephora, like pushing it away. This is just a brand opportunity across the board.
Completely agree. Yeah, completely agree.
All right, retail. Got to break this down. The friendly teas.
Remind me what I wrote.
Yeah. So Rachel shared around people, brands, and things, the rise of close friends, the unique brand channel.
Oh, teas. Right.
Yeah.
Yes. I,
Yeah.
I'm
And
following you.
there's other examples, but I think giving a bit of background into this so that people really kind of know and then seeing kind of the opportunity, I think would be helpful.
Yeah. I mean, well, first of all, read Rachel's Q1 report. Read all of her reports. They're always fascinating. I think like she wrote in this one, like these aren't like stat driven reports. They're like, you know, like more commentary, like notes. And so what this time she did was she had all these different people, you know, lots of people that I reference all the time come in, and like People Brands and Things is one of them. She also had Byron on, who we met in New York, like really like thoughtful people. And People Brands and Things like brought up this trend of like brands using close friends, which close friends is like a setting on your Instagram. Like if you're not using it, it's like what kids use, or you know, adult children use to hide their like, you know, posts from people that they don't want to see. But now brands are using it to essentially create like subgroups of their fans. You know, so it's like, hey, like we're close friends, and then like they might post like teasers to product launches or early access to sales. And how you get on these close friends lists like is very different from brand to brand to brand. Like Nike sometimes will invite influencers, you know, some brands will like kind of do like a, you know, join our close friends like thing, and then they close it. Like everybody kind of has a different method of like getting these close friends. But they yeah, I think overall like it's just really interesting to, it's sort of like a gatekeeping way of like keeping out all of these different opportunities, right? These brand perks. The thing that was interesting to me, and so there was another person who wrote about this, Akin, this week, which like I think just was an interesting kind of coincidence. Like I don't think it was necessarily inspired by Rachel's report, but she was talking about how Jacquemus has like a WhatsApp group, so it's not just on Instagram, right? Like it's kind of all over the place. Like I've written about how Magasin had like a private sale just for their Substack subscribers. So like there's lots of different things like for their paid subscribers. So there's lots of different ways that brands are doing this. I think one thing that really is interesting though is that I think there's a lot of perception from brands that this is like this really fun thing, and like you guys are close, but like you're not close. Like people are just coming to this close friend thing for the perks, right? Like, and sadly, like sometimes the reality is like at Design Week, one group like got in and they got all these free chairs, and now they're selling these free chairs on Vinted for like tons more money. And it's like, maybe they knew that would happen, and quite honestly, like I don't think that was the wrong play for them. I don't know if it's gained any of their actual, like if anyone who got a chair or whatever like is gonna ever convert, but it's certainly got Etra's name out into the world, which like, you know, whoever was talking about them before. So, you know, there's advantages and disadvantages to trying these things. But I think it's just one thing to realize as a brand is like, you know, this is it, like any sale, like any perk, like anything is a transaction. So you should go in it with your eyes wide open.
Right. Yeah, I think it's just interesting because it's almost like unlocks another channel. You know, the idea, and I think there is a feeling around, oh wow, I got to this level or whatever with this brand. Like there's a cachet around that. But I think it can also go the other way of like, you know, really feeling super commercial and super negative to a brand where it's like, I'm not your friend, you're not my friend, and could
Yeah.
really have negative connotations. But I think it's interesting, just again, like it's more community oriented. It's not IRL, but it's reaching towards that. How do we create more and more of a community?
Yeah, and I think there are brands who are genuinely building community, but then there are also mostly brands if it's like, hey, you're going to offer an extra 25% off to anyone who follows you on Close Friends, like this is not what we call community, right? And I think a lot of brands are like, oh, we're building a community, but you're not really building a community. You're just building a group of people who are aware of your sales, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think that's maybe the takeaway of to do it in a really strategic way and not just do it in a basic way. I'd be super curious comments to see like what people are seeing and what their thoughts on that for sure.
Yeah, and if anyone's in a lot of these close friends groups and actually getting something out of it that's not purely transactional, I'd love to hear that because I think it's, you know, I think it's I think just like all channels. Like there's lots of fun opportunities and I think brands can play with it. I think it's just about like doing it in a way that feels right for your brand, and doing things that feel fun, like is always good. So I think if that's the kind of the intent and it feels like it's like just creating buzz and like building on your kind of brand vibe, like great.
Yeah. But again, have a strategy. Don't just throw the kitchen sink at them. That's not going to work out for you. All right, moving on. Tech. Can you be duped? Again, bringing in dupe to the headline. I'm here for it.
This was about Spotify's founder
Shopify.
coming out.
Shopify CEO.
Shopify. Could easily have been Spotify, to be honest.
Yes.
But Shopify's founder coming out and saying to his employees, like, hey, like, I want you to prove that your job can't be done by AI. And also saying, and I think this part is true, and I think, I think we're going to see a ton more of this, but like saying like, hey, I also expect a certain AI literacy from my employees so that like you're not sort of like, oh, head in the sand, I don't want my job taken by AI, and so you just don't know anything about it. Like, I think if you, by the end of this calendar year, aren't familiar with the most basic tools of AI, you are equivalent to somebody who didn't get on board with email after like 3 or 4 years. So if there's no excuse, like it's like you can either be like printer paper with the like little holes behind it, or like we're not in fax machine era anymore, like whatever.
I'm glad you're
there's
making
a-
these references, not me. So yes, but
yeah,
I'm here for
but
'em.
like
and I
it's
identify with all of
true.
them.
It's
Yeah.
true. Like you need to be literate. You need to be using these things. Like I know we say that about TikTok and things like that, but like truly, like if you're doing any kind of business work and you don't understand how to augment what you're doing with AI, and at least understand how your employees might be able to augment themselves with AI, then you're just asleep at the wheel. So I don't think that's wrong. Like I think that's just par, like I said, like that's just pay to play at this point.
Yeah, it feels a little harsh. Like I can't imagine being an employee and having kind of that statement put at me. Like that doesn't feel great.
On
But
Twitter?
I think,
Yeah, no. I mean, just the worst way to communicate anything is on an X post. So,
Yes,
like,
yes.
if you're a brand and you're thinking to yourself, like,
Don't do
what's
that.
the best way to
Don't do that.
do this? Like, it would be not that.
Not that. Yeah. But I do think to your point, like, and I think like, listen, this is a great example of this, Puck, the CEO could have come out and said, listen, we're really AI forward. We're really good about innovation. We're really going to do this. So here's what we're doing, and could have done it in a really positive way versus like making employees feel like shit.
Right. And I think that I've written about this before with Klarna. Like they've sort of done that, like where they like, they just said like, hey, we're going to put a freeze and see what we can do as a team. Right. So they weren't saying like, they never said like, you're going to get laid. Like you have to prove that you can't be replaced by AI. Right. They basically said, hey, we're going to put a freeze on the hiring, which like is sort of what this guy is saying. It's just the way he said it was very different. And we're going to put a freeze on the hiring, and we're going to see how far we can take it as a small and nimble team. And the reason that this is valuable to you if you work at Klarna is because your stock like is not going to get diluted by all of these new employees that are going to come and take away your earnings and your share of this company. And then if we find out like there's all these different things, you're going to start doing other things, and we're going to start building like, faster, greater, And the value that I see is that group of employees is coming out with like, they are the most AI savvy employees in the tech market, right? Besides the ones who are working in an AI group. But it's just a very different positioning of the problem.
Right. But think about that. Like, I mean, that's just huge. And I feel like there's a theme throughout everything that we're talking about. Like, there's a way to do all of the things. There's a way to do, you want to be AI forward. You want people to do this. Like, there's a way to do it, and you can actually do it. Imagine being a Klarna employee. Wow. Can I speak? You feel more empowered and you feel more on it, and you feel like that's actually a positive badge. Whereas imagine getting this message from Shopify and feeling that, and you feel kind of lowered in that. Like it's to your point, it's the same thing. You can do the same thing, but you can do it in a really empowered way or a really degrading way.
Yeah. I also think like, again, not to get on Shopify's case, but like Shopify is a business that is like entirely made up of small businesses that could use basically like 400 employees that then only have two, you know? So like, I just wish that they kind of like had this more like rah, like maybe we can figure out some of these things, pass this knowledge on to you guys. Like, we're going to unlock some stuff, or we're going to do this so that we can make it cheaper for you guys, because we understand that, like, you know, like there's just a way that they could have done it where it like was less like, oh, we want to take care of our shareholders, instead of we want to take care of like the people who are like our primary users and our customers and our
Yeah.
employees.
And you can do both.
Mhm.
Opportunity. I feel like we need a bell or like a graphic every time that happens. All right, let's move on. Sport. I think this is really interesting. So I want to talk about team for teams, because I think it's something that is maybe happening within this and is gonna maybe move into other industries as well. So you want to give a little background? You want me to remind you of anything?
Remind
All
me
right,
of what I was
so
talking
this
about.
is off ball. The Atlantic Hawks hired a creator
Yeah.
collective of 25 creators with a collective of almost 15 million followers. And the goal isn't just about content, but it's really to create a sponsorship inventory. Like, I think this is fascinating, and, you know, maybe detail out what it is, and then we can talk about where it could go.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, like it was one of those things when I read it where I was like, surely like people are doing this already. So like maybe this is not news, but it seems like it is news. So the Hawks hired like a content collective. And so this content collective is like not banned from like making other things, right? Like they're kind of like they're just content creators that are sort of brought in to work on great content for the brand and all kinds of different aspects of the, like, I'm sure it has to do with fandom. I'm sure it has to do with, you know, athletes. I'm sure it has to do with like actual game, like that, you know, I'm sure they're going to be showing all sorts of types of things, but they have all of these different creators who are going to be involved in this. And then the idea is that they want to kind of create some sponsorship inventory that advertisers can get behind. And they haven't been really like, they're not like publicizing what they mean by that. But I think it's just the idea that, like, you know, these people have unfettered access. They, you know, like hopefully unfettered access, and can create some content that would be like much more interesting for brands to kind of get behind, or to work together with these creators to create content potentially that they could work on. So it's interesting. Like, just the whole strategy is really interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And I think, you know, a lot of things we're seeing, I think start in sport, but there's, you know, this could go into really any industry.
Yeah, and I think it's also about the lens of those creators, right? Like some content is going to be more funny, and some content is going to be more sporty, and some content is going to be more fashion, like inevitably based on the lens and the view of this creator. And so then it gives you such a wider range of content for brands that's like, oh, like I fit better with this style of content. I fit better with this style of content, which is what people do with influencers, but they don't really have the opportunity to do that with teams. So it's interesting.
Right. And it's almost like seeing this shoppable inventory, because I think so much of it is like, okay, well, what do I do if we have to advertise? Like, what's the concept? What's all of this? And to actually see this shoppable inventory there, I think changes the game for many brands. All right.
Yeah.
Wellness and
Stay
beauty.
tuned.
Indeed. Okay. Let me see if I can say this right.
I wrote it so many times and I spelled it like, and I was like, how many? And, you know, like, I'm like looking here, like, how many O's? Where do the O's go? Where do the E's go? Exosomes. Yeah, something that Jenny mentioned in the beginning of the year as being something that she saw coming, similar to peptides. And I think what's interesting about it, so the article that I was linking to was talking about how some of these exosomes are coming from human cells, which, like, you know, it's funny, like, what's like EU versus, because in the US, like, Botox chemicals are banned, and then like apparently human cells like exosomes are not banned, but in the EU they are. So anyway, you know, I think it's just interesting. But if you spend any time at all on the TikTok, then you would know that salmon sperm is the topic of du jour for the last few weeks. And that's why. So it's about regeneration,
Yeah.
like.
Yeah, which is what exosomes do. It's something you naturally produce, but they also, and I'm 100% here for the salmon sperm, whatever
Yeah,
things that can
I'm
happen.
sure you are. I'm sure you've got like 12 bottles of it from when we were went to Senti Senti in New York.
Don't think they actually had that, but yeah. But I think whatever version of it. And I think there's a whole rabbit hole we could go down as far as the EU and the US of the differences within beauty standards. I mean, I think it's so silly of what we allow in and what we don't allow in. But
Yeah.
that's for
Yeah.
another topic.
But I think
All
if
right.
you're in that space, you should be tracking this. Is all it.
Yes, for sure.
Takeaway.
And tracking, yeah, agreed. And where it can potentially go. Yeah, and what your stance is on it. Okay, I thought this was another really interesting one. And again, I think a lot of industries can take this, but the hotel recession and what proper hotels are doing, I thought was really fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, so to describe it and then to kind of clear up. So Proper Hotels is coming out with something called the Proper Club, which is, obviously drawing on a lot of trends of like wellness spas and da 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 da. And like, so you could have I almost put this in wellness, right? Because it's really just following that whole like thing of like, contrast therapy and like fit bougie workouts and biomarkers and, yada, yada, yada. You've been on this podcast before, so you know the list. But what I was thinking about was that it's such interesting timing because the reality is that like places like Proper Hotels are looking for, people, travelers. And like, obviously there's an enormous amount of US travel still happening, but the global like perspective on traveling to the US right now is not that great. So I think it's a really well-timed sort of thing for a lot of reasons. One, it's on trend, like globally, like this is kind of what everyone, and that's what we talked about in general in travel, like is that we want a one-stop shop experience. Like I want the great restaurant, I want the contrast therapy, I want the red light therapy, blah, 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 when I travel. But it's even smarter to have it kind of tapping into like a local network. So like you living near here can go and use this facility, and it's a reason for you to go to that hotel, which like obviously if you're not traveling and you're local, like other than they do have a really nice lobby and restaurant, like why would you go there? But like it gives you more reasons to kind of connect to the local community and like pull some of that like pressure off of the lack of travel to the US.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's really smart. It's an extension that works really well for others. Like, obviously I want to go in LA and to go see it, but also it works really well for people that are traveling that want to experience it. And I think like to have dialed in that it doesn't, it's like, it's the best example of yes and versus it's only going to be for this or it's only going to be for this. And I think just thinking about as an opportunity versus like, holy fuck, there's a recession. What are we going to do?
Yeah. I also think, coming out with a proprietary name for a red light bed is very genius because it's like, I want to immediately go and experience this amortal chamber, which essentially just looks like a fancy red light bed. But like, how badly do I want to try this? Like quite badly. It doesn't seem, like it's got sound therapy and it's got the red light and but like it's red light therapy. Like it's not a reinvention of the wheel, but I do like a great name and you pull someone in, and that's the power of great naming.
Yeah. And the visuals, the brand, like this is a great example of taking something that could have been a basic. And again, just how with great imagery, copy, some strategy, they really made it much more impressive and intense.
Totally. I'm there. I'm ready to experience it.
Yeah, me too.
Sign me up.
All right. I guess that takes us to fun for the week.
Tell me what was bubbling to the top?
Lots to talk about, actually. I've got a few. I think the Hey Ken is something we should talk about.
Yeah. I was like, I almost wanted to write a whole thing about it, and then I was like, I'm just going to leave this here for people to kind of unpack. But what you're talking about is that LeBron was given a Ken doll. And, it's like, I'm really sad. I don't know if you can scroll to the next image, and I'm hoping it's a full body one, because like the pants on this Ken doll are like just amazing. Like it's like Ken's never had such good pants.
Got pretty
Um,
rad style for sure.
yeah, like the cross body, like it's just like it's a whole vibe, and I think it's just really interesting because it obviously could have gone very like action figure and like vibes, but it's much more like style vibes. And I just think it's really important to like have this sort of stigma taken away that Barbie is for girls and Barbie is, this and that. And like maybe this is for girls, but like girls could also like sports, and like you can like it peripherally or you can not like it. You can like it because of style. Like there's just like a blending of things for me that I think is very interesting, where I'm like, this feels important. Like this feels like a moment in culture where it's like some things went right, and like it's like, okay, I'm here for this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's really, I mean, I think it's important, it's the first, yes, I think non-Ken version of this doll. But I think it's also important that he's Black. I think it's important that it's LeBron. There's this positivity behind it. Like there's so much, I think, important kind of milestones in doing this. And I think they did it really, really well. And I also think it's interesting to see Barbie since the movie and since all of the promotion, like what are they doing next to stay relevant and to stay in kind of the zeitgeist?
Yeah. Yeah. And like the message on the tee and like just the texture on the jacket, like everything, the details are really good. So yeah, I'm here for it. I think it feels like a nice little yay for like a time that feels like we don't always have like a lot of, especially like in the whole DEI situation, feels like particularly important. Like obviously this has been like in development for so long, but like they could have killed it, and they could, and like I think it's like, okay, there are brands that are sort of not um not following that train of thought, and I think that's important.
Yes. Kudos to Barbie for sure. Okay. Moving on to the opposite end of things, but I thought it was really timely, and I'm um, thinking about Easter and my kids, and I love how you were like, product hunt, is it brilliant or is it bloodbath? And I think the jury's out. Could for sure be either.
Yeah. Like I'm always on the lookout for like random things and I'm like, oh, this would be fun at an event. And I saw this product hunt where it's like hiding little bits of Easter eggs and like makeup, like small samples of skincare and makeup inside of Easter eggs, and then like having a product hunt. And I was like, oh my God, like I 100% could see this doing really well, but would it be dangerous at a certain point? Like maybe, but kind of amazing too.
Great. Kind of great. And then, I mean, there were a lot that I saw. I thought the mystery cups was amazing, was interesting. Like, I think there's just such an appetite for that. Again, I'm looking through the lens of myself and Sailor, but I think it's definitely
Yeah, the
something
mystery
that's out
cups
there.
are basically like they're these cups that have like faux bottoms, that have like small trinkets in the bottom. So you like get a cup, and then it also comes with a prize, and they're big at events right now. They often have like little stuffed animals in them, or trinkets, or like parts for like bag charms and things like that. But it's just, this is out there, it's in the world. It feels very much like, I can't even remember if I included this, but like Dubai chocolate has been big in Europe for like a hot minute, and now it feels like it's like finally showing up. Like Shake Shack did like a Dubai chocolate drink, and like this, if this is happening in parts of the world, it is only a matter of time for it to arrive in the US. So you can choose to be one of these brands that does it and brings it to people, or you can be like after the fact. So
Yes. Okay. And then I think this is important from a brand standpoint. Stüssy, because actually I can't remember where it was, obviously, but I was just talking about Stüssy, the brand, with somebody, and the intergenerational thing, and the fact that how relevant the brand is, so relevant right now.
yeah, it's like the brand is really relevant. They opened this new store, and it like got a ton of buzz. And so, but one of the things that was interesting is that it was like, there's like the original Stüssy fans, there's kind of the second generation of Stüssy fans, and now there's a third generation of Stüssy fans that are coming in. And I think it's just one of those brands to me that has never tried to be like not who it is, right? Like, and it's stayed relevant, it stayed fresh, but it's also like kind of stayed true to itself, and it like had good bones to begin with. They've done lots of good collaborations with people to kind of keep themselves relevant, but they're also not like out there like hawking themselves all day. So like that, like it feels like a brand that's like you still have to kind of look for, you know, like you're not like, oh, it's like on Abbott Kinney type of thing. Like they're not like chasing the money, you know? And I think that's
Right.
important.
They would never do that. Yeah. They would never do that.
They would
They
never.
were on the brand.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there
Yeah, it
still
was like,
needs to be a scarcity to like certain brands like that. And I think some brands forget that.
right. Yeah. But I think they didn't do scarcity in the way that Supreme did scarcity, which sometimes it would feel like, well, Supreme's doing scarcity to do scarcity. Stüssy just always felt like relevant, but it was like almost the original streetwear brand, like relevant with this particular type of crowd. And that's who they knew. But everybody would have a Stüssy t-shirt.
Yeah, but it's scarcity in the sense that they weren't just like, they're not trying to like wholesale themselves out like to all these different places where you're just like, oh my God, like you're inescapable. And I think they've always been comfortable with that. And I think it's just, it again also shows though, like, and I've brought this up so many times, but the more and more people who are moving in with their parents, which is just so true, like their parents are influencing their kids and like everybody is influencing one another. It's going up and down. And a little bit like the first time that you find, you know, every generation eventually finds Led Zeppelin type of thing, like where it's like, oh, like, and then you like suddenly are like, yeah, like Led Zeppelin's great. You know, there's always this moment where like if you were original Stüssy fan and then suddenly like your, you know, grandchild comes along and is like, hey, like this brand's really rad, like there's this moment of connection, right? And they are like, that's happening a lot more than brands realize, I think, in general.
Yes. Yeah. I think there's a lot of lessons in that. You know, the brand that stayed true to itself, just Stüssy, like they always knew who they were. They never, ever like did a bad collaboration or did this where you were like, what? Like they have a very, very clear vision. And I think they stayed relevant always because of that. And now I think they're really like coming back in a really powerful way. Intergenerational to your point. Okay. And I think we're going to end with, there's one more. Saw a lot of fun for this week, but I think this is a great example of, as we talk about, like, let's give Alpha a space. Yes. And Jeff Koons figured it out.
Kef Jones. No. It's CJ Hendry.
Oh, Kef Jones. That's what I mean. Yeah.
No, so CJ Hendry, who is amazing, like installation artist. She does like so many fun things. Like anytime, like every year, she does something that just like completely takes over. Like the pool with the flowers was one last year that I shared. And so she did this installation where she sort of like mocking Jeff Koons, and she called it Kef Jones. And there's like this big kind of like tunnel of thing, like these tubes everywhere, and these colorful inflatable tubes that are filling up an entire room. They're all multicolored, and you can actually climb on them, which like to me, like I was like, New York City, like what did they make you sign in order to like be able to do this?
You get a free pair of grip socks, for God's sake. It's amazing.
Yeah, but it's just, you know, it's like the world's coolest version of the ice cream, you know, ball pit, like Museum of Ice Cream ball pit. It's just much better version. And, you know, I think like in general, like with Design Week and everything, like this is obviously highly shareable. People want to go and experience it. I actually really appreciate that it's open for 9 days, which like, you know, for brands doing all these pop-ups, like that's one thing that drives me absolutely insane is that brands do these pop-ups and then like people can't go and experience them. Like they find out about them and then they're never to be seen again. So I really appreciate that actually, like, she let people know that it's happening because she built it already. And then she's going to have it for 9 days. So you actually have time to go get there and see it if you want to versus after the fact.
It's a great example. I love it. All right. That's all we have time for.
Super fun.
Would love everybody's thoughts, comments.
Yes.
What did you think of the episode? What was fascinating? What wasn't? And if you loved it, give us some love for the algorithm.
Yeah. Thank you. Ciao.
All right. Stay curious.
That was it for this episode of Good Thinking. Don't forget to tune in next week.
If you found this valuable, subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast app.
And don't forget to read on Substack for even more insights.
And if you really liked it, drop us a heart. We'd love to hear from you.
Ciao. Until next time.